Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
You want to be part of the crowd.
Yes. It's about belonging. It's about acceptance, about being part of the in-group.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
G'day, this is Dr. Justin Coulson. I've just been reprimanded for having chocolate around my lips. And now?
Well, after last week's effort of buying a treat without me, you've now had another one.
If you missed it last week, you've heard what just happened. And I've been eating some chocolate cake just before we've recorded this podcast, and now I'm getting in trouble for it. Can you take me seriously?
No, I can't. You've still got a chocolate smear on the corner.
Do I really?
There we go. It's gone now.
It was chocolate torte with extra strawberry in it. Chocolate and strawberry torte. Really enjoyed it. I offered you some. You didn't want any?
No, because I'd had my mint balls already.
Oh, right. I was thinking how good you'd been, but clearly not. Mind you still said no. I'm Justin. You're Kylie. We've got 6 kids. I'm the founder of happyfamilies.com.au. Do you remember when you were a kid, simpler times, right, compared to today? Would you... If you could be a child today or a child back in the 80s when we were growing up, 70s, 80s, 90s, what would you choose?
I would go back in time.
Yeah?
Every time.
Yeah, why is that?
It was just, life was simpler.
So it was simpler times?
It was.
Yeah.
So simple. I can't imagine having to navigate what our children are navigating now.
Yeah, back when we were kids, I remember the big issues were yo-yos, whether or not you could walk the dog or do around the world. I mean, that mattered in grade 3 in the early 1980s.
I just remember, hanging out with my friends as a teenager and listening to the radio with your finger on record and play.
That's right.
Ready to record your favourite song.
Onto the cassette tape.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then don't leave it in the car too long because the cassette tape would get all...
The heat would destroy
Yes.
If you live in a hot place like Queensland.
Yeah. And make that really crazy sound as it slurred everything out.
So I thought today we might talk about the crazes of our day and compare it to the crazes of today, because the reality is at the moment, because of TikTok, because of Instagram, because of Snapchat, because of social media, some of the crazes that have been getting around for the last few years are really concerning. And there's a brand new one called the Milk Crate Challenge that we're going to talk about soon. But it just got me thinking, what were the crazes when you were growing up? Can you remember any? Like I said, for me it was yo-yos.
So girls used to love writing love letters to the boys that they liked.
That was a craze?
It was a bit of a
Would you call that a craze?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember any crazes. I just remember
Do you remember
Tamagotchi?
Tamagotchi?
Yes.
You went into the
No, that was before. That was after me.
Oh, okay. Do you remember Tazos?
I just never got involved in any of this stuff.
You weren't a craze person?
No.
Oh, see, I was into all the crazes. I had the marbles.
Never.
Oh, gosh.
Cabbage Patch Girls, kids.
Yeah, okay. What about when you got older, though? Okay, so there was the Tazos and Tamagotchis and things. Did you do any... I'm guessing no, because you were a girl, but teenage boys used to get involved in some ridiculous crazes, these fads that went through the school system. We used to have this thing...
like mullets.
Oh, mullets, perfect example. Yes.
I never had a mullet.
I'm kind of grateful to hear that. I really am.
But fringes and high fringe. Actually, someone posted a picture the other day of their high fringe.
Yeah.
You know, when the girls used to tease their fringes and they used to be really high.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
The fringe went up, because when you said tease the fringe, I'm thinking this is way too technical to me. Kylie's sitting opposite me right now, demonstrating what a teased fringe looks like. But of course, this is a podcast, so no one can see what you're doing. The teased fringe. So there was this thing that we called the wimp test.
The wimp test.
The wimp test. This was a craze that went through the New South Wales Central Coast when I would have been in about grade 9. So we're talking about very late 1980s, maybe the very early 1990s, somewhere around probably bang on 1990-ish. And the wimp test was you made a fist, and on the back of your hand, you had to drag your fingernail along the back of your hand. Okay, so you make a fist and then just drag your fingernail from your other hand across the back of your hand and scratch it. And then you scratch it again and scratch it again. And you had to do 100 of them. And you actually had to scratch it people would watch you doing it, and if you didn't sort of lift the skin, if the skin didn't go white, you weren't putting enough pressure on it. And it was called the wimp test because you had to do it 100 times.
Who does these things?
People that want to assert their masculinity by demonstrating that they can scratch themselves 100 times with force. And what would happen is that you would lift enough skin that you would start to bleed, and then you'd be walking around school for the next 2 weeks or thereabouts with this big sort of 5 centimetre scab down the back of your hand to demonstrate that you were not a wimp because you had passed the wimp test because you'd put a great big scab on the back of your hand by scratching it 100 times.
I don't know where I was, maybe under a rock, but I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I don't.
The girls didn't do that one. It was just a boy. Actually, there were a couple of girls that did, but that was the boy thing.
Well, I remember a story you did tell me, but you were much older. You weren't a teenager.
Which one?
The milk challenge.
Well, I did it twice. There was a teenage milk challenge, and then there was a sort of a...
That's right, there was.
So we had another challenge, another craze that was going around when I was at school. I don't know if I should tell this one.
You've already told it.
Have I?
Yes.
On the podcast?
I'm sure you have.
Well, I'll do it again in brief.
Or maybe it's just the fact that I've heard you tell it, I don't know how many times.
You're not a fan of this story at all.
Who's a fan of vomiting?
So the milk challenge is basically, when I was in grade 9, my friends came around one night and said, have you done the milk challenge? Everyone's doing the milk challenge. Again, this is about 1991, New South Wales Central Coast. And I'm like, what's the milk challenge? And they said, you've got to drink 2 litres of milk in 10 minutes. And I thought that would be really easy because I was going to say I was a professional swimmer. I wasn't a professional swimmer, but I was a squad athlete. I was training like crazy 4 hours a day in the pool. I mean, that's a lot of swimming. And so I just had a big bowl of spaghetti bolognese, but I grabbed 2 litres of strawberry milk out of the fridge that Mum had just bought, and I drank it, I reckon, in about 5 or 6 minutes. I mean, it just went straight down, no problem at all. And then to prove that I could hold it down and everything was fine, I went for a run just to, be my manly self. And that was it. But when I was in my, I don't know, probably 19, I definitely left school. And some friends said, hey, do you want to do the milk challenge this weekend? And I said, that's pretty lame. I did it when I was in grade 9 and it was easy. And they said, we don't know anyone that's done the milk challenge. You think that was easy? You're the only person we've ever heard of who did it. They said, how did you manage? How did you drink 4 litres of milk in an hour? And I kind of did a double take. I was like, no, it's 10 minutes and 2 litres. And they said, no, it's an hour and 4 litres. So that weekend, we went down to the...
Well, that seems pretty easy. If you could do 2 litres in 10 minutes.
You'd think so, but the stomach has limited capacity, I discovered.
Well, don't you just go to the toilet?
No, you're not. No, you don't process it that fast. Like, it doesn't just pass through you that quickly. And so I drank the first 3 litres in less than 30 minutes. And I sat against the wall of the building that we were drinking 4 litres of milk each outside.
I reckon I wouldn't make it an hour without going to the bathroom.
It was, don't get caught up on the technicalities. It was a very, very painful experience. And what I will say is that the stomach doesn't seem designed to be able to hold 4 litres of milk or 4 litres of anything. And around about 55 minutes into the hour that we had for it, I only had about 500 mils to go, but I'd watched everybody else bring up their milk. And I just knew in 5 minutes I wasn't going to get that 500 millilitres in, no matter how hard I tried. And so with about 2 minutes to go, I took a great big swig, and then I just opened up my mouth and 3 and
Stop.
3 and 3/4 litres of milk. Just and you know the funny thing about that much liquid leaving your body through your mouth? Like just this great big white waterfall.
I've had lots of liquid leave my body.
A big white waterfall.
Lots of times.
I know this is really gross, but this is what teenage boys do, right? A big white waterfall of vomit. And but because there's 3.5 litres, it just keeps going. Like you open your mouth and it's like somebody's turned on the fire hose. 3.5 litres takes a long time to leave the digestive tract from the stomach and come up through them. Like I reckon, I actually thought I was going to suffocate because I couldn't breathe air in because there was so much milk coming out. We need to actually get on with why we're having this conversation about crazes. We've talked about yo-yos and Tamagotchis and Tazos and milk challenges and wimp tests, but we need to talk about why our kids are doing them, and we've got to talk about planking, which led to deaths a few years ago, and we've got to talk about the Tide Pod challenge and the choking challenge, and we've got to talk about the milk crate challenge, why it's happening, what it means for us as parents and why our kids are doing this stuff. We're going to do that right after the break.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And thankfully, we have got past the milk challenge. I hope that you are still hanging in with us right now.
Please don't judge me. I was a teenage boy. I'm so sorry. There's a whole lot of internet crazes that have taken the place of those, I'm going to say those innocent, dumb, mostly harmless challenges of our childhood. And the challenges have changed because social media rewards outrageous behaviour.
It's interesting, as I was listening to you and just thinking back, like on my childhood, like I said, I don't know if it's just because I was under a rock or not, but I don't feel like girls gravitated to that kind of behaviour as much.
Yeah.
But in saying that, the internet is full of girls these days. It doesn't seem to be favoured by one sex or the other.
So boys do tend to take more risks than girls, but social media has probably leveled the playing field a little bit because it's all about likes, it's all about reactions, it's all about going viral, it's all about being the next big internet thing. And I think what's really going on here is we know from neuroscience that the promise of a reward always outweighs the risk of the behavior. So if the kids are looking at something that's really risky, they're intelligent enough to tell you that it's risky and they can explain what the risks are. We know that when it comes to adolescents, their capacity to identify risk and danger is not particularly different to adults. It may be a little bit because we've got more experience, but they're intelligent enough to figure stuff out and they can explain things really clearly. They're just so drawn to the promise of reward that they overlook the risks in ways that adults don't.
The other day, I actually watched somebody do the milk crate challenge.
Yeah.
And as an adult, looking at it, I didn't even find it funny. I was literally on the edge of my seat thinking, what is this person thinking?
So, and this is the difference again between probably male and female. And also because I'm the kind of person I am, I'm kind of impulsive and I'm kind of excited by challenging things. And I'm always up for a challenge. I want to do hard things. And I watched the Milk Crate Challenge. For those of you who have not seen it, essentially people create a pyramid out of milk crates with a height of 5 milk crates in the middle and then 4 on either side and then 3 and then 2 and then 1. And they have to walk up and then down the milk crates. But milk crates are notoriously unstable and milk crates are wobbly and they don't obviously sit on top of each other perfectly well. Like they're going to stick together but not well. And by the time you get to the 4th one, it's wobbly. And by the time you're standing up on top of the 5th one, you're up kind of high and this thing's wobbling all over the place and people fall down and they hurt themselves. And I mean, you can break limbs and that sort of stuff. The other really popular ones recently, a few years ago, there was planking, and you probably remember there was a couple of deaths in Australia. So when you do a plank, you basically lie still like a log, and people were just planking in outrageous places, like on balconies of Gold Coast apartments. And every now and again, somebody would overbalance and fall off while they were lying like a plank. There's the choking challenge where people literally film themselves choking each other until they pass out. There's the Tide Pod challenge. So in Australia, we don't have the brand Tide, I don't think, but it's a laundry detergent. But these kids are getting on social media and they're literally swallowing a laundry detergent or a dishwashing detergent capsule, tablet. Yeah. And like you and I, we're looking at each other going, these people are nuts. But like I said, social media, big rewards. And you know why people really...
You did drink 4 litres of milk.
I didn't. I drank 3 3/4 litres of milk, thank you. And then we've already had that conversation. But you know why they really do it? Do you know why they really do it? It's not just the reward. There's one central reason that people, especially teenagers, especially teenage boys, do these really dumb things.
It's peer pressure.
Well, it's not just peer pressure. Why does peer pressure work?
Because you want to be part of the crowd.
Yes. It's about belonging. It's about acceptance, about being part of the in-group. And that's why these challenges catch on.
That's why I never caught on.
You didn't care.
I didn't.
And I think that this is probably where we need to bring in the parenting stuff. Our kids are smart, but they're easily influenced and they want to belong. So if you've got a child who wants to participate in these sorts of challenges, it's a great opportunity to open up and say,
Are our kids going to tell us that? I kind of don't think they are.
no, but what we can do is we can say, here's what I know. I know that you've been watching these challenges and you want to do them. And I just want to go through the risks, make sure that you're across them like I am. Yeah, okay, so climbing on top of milk crates like that, you could fall and break a bone, but it is going to look awesome on the internet, isn't it? And if you break the bone, you're going to get even more awesome responses, aren't you? And so let's actually put it out there and say, does that seem smart to you?
All just to belong.
Just to belong, yeah. And this is why you're doing it. It's dumb and it's probably mostly harmless, but it might not be. When we're talking about a choking challenge, when we're talking about planking in dangerous places, when we're talking about a Tide Pod challenge, dangerous. And so we want to go back through and explore, explain, empower kind of conversation with them. Remember, when they're not in the moment, when they're not seeking the reward right here, right now, they're much more likely to actually access the part of their brain that will think things through. And so we just say, what's the deal? Why do you reckon these people are doing this stuff? And your kids are going to give you really good answers. And then instead of you explaining why you don't want them to do it, which is what I'd normally say here, I think a better response would be to say, why do you think I've got concerns about this particular challenge? Get them to explain it to you. And lastly, empower them. So if you're given an opportunity to participate, or if you're thinking about participating in a challenge like this, what's the best way to respond? That's the way that I'd approach it.
So you've talked about all of these challenges, but a couple of years ago, there was this ice bucket challenge. It was all the craze.
Yes.
Everybody was sitting and letting somebody else dump a bucket of ice cold water on their heads.
Yep.
That was for a good cause.
Sure. Do you think that the milk crate challenge would be popular if it was for a good cause as well? Like I mean, it could be, right? I don't think that any cause would. I think most people who would be a recipient, most organisations as a recipient of people doing that would say, no, find something safer.
Yeah.
We want your money, but we don't want you to endanger yourself. But let's go back to this. Again, what that does, the ice bucket challenge, is it's about signalling. I'm aware of people's suffering. I'm trying to do something about it, and I'm putting it on social media so everyone can see that I care. So there's a lot of signaling going on. But signaling is all about belonging. People were doing it because they wanted to be part of the crowd. They wanted to be part of the craze. Even the grown-ups that were doing it, even the sports stars and the academics and the politicians, they were all doing it because they wanted to be part of the crowd. The issue here, and again, I'd bring this up with the kids. I would just say there are some challenges that are fun and mostly harmless. And then there are some challenges that are just really, really dangerous. How do you distinguish between the two? And what will you do when you're given the opportunities to participate in them? How will you make a decision as to whether you do or don't? How important is that reward? How important is going viral to you? Is it worth your life? Is it worth the hospital visit? Do you really want to have clean insides so badly that you're willing to swallow a dishwashing detergent tablet? And when you talk to them sensibly out of the moment, I think most kids are going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And you know the other thing? We get caught up about all the worry around this stuff, but the reality is most of our kids are not doing it. Most of our kids are not choking each other. Most of our kids are not climbing up milk crates. Most of our kids are not swallowing laundry detergent. Most of our kids are not planking, at least not in unsafe places. Most of our kids aren't even doing milk challenges and wimp tests, let's face it, or playing with yo-yos. And so that means that as parents, we're pretty much getting this right most of the time. But it's important to have the conversation and make sure that your kids are making safe, healthy decisions.
Well, hopefully this has been helpful.
Bring back marbles, I reckon. Marbles were much safer.
Oh, remember the days when we used to play elastics?
There you go.
And skipping rope?
There you go. So you were into crazes.
Well, maybe a little bit.
I just want to do a Tommy drop. You remember? You probably don't remember the tombola. It was the biggest marble, and you could do a Tommy drop and drop it on somebody else's marble. And if you dropped it hard enough, sometimes you'd even break their marble.
It.
Yeah, Tommy drops were the best. I used to have such a good marble collection. I don't know what happened to it. Hey, we really hope that you've enjoyed this conversation about simple times and dangerous times and the challenges and crazes that our kids get up to, especially with the advent of social media and the internet. Hope it's been helpful. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a rating and review. It's those 5-star ratings and reviews that make all the difference in other people finding out about the podcast and make your family happier. Oh, by the way, one of those 5-star reviews has just come through from T. Menadu, who said, OMG, why haven't I listened to this earlier? My son's high school has a membership that parents can access. I even attended a short seminar at school. I just wish I'd started listening to this podcast earlier. It is fantastic. So thank you very much for that 5-star review. We've had a bunch come through over the last few months, but we haven't been reading them out, and we're going to start doing that again. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. And if you'd like more info about getting hold of that membership that makes such a difference, because a happy family doesn't just happen, please visit memberships at happyfamilies.com.au.